Hello, and welcome to Streamlining Insurance. I'm your host, Darren Bloomfield. Joining me today is David D. and Mike Roy. We're going to be going over AI and automation in the insurance industry, specifically in the E&S space. David, can you introduce yourself?
You got it. Thanks, Darren. My name is David Derigiotis. I'm the president of brokerage with AI-powered wholesale broker Flow Specialty.
Mike?
Thanks, Darren. Glad to be here. Mike Roy, I'm the CEO of Dark Matter InsurTech.
Yeah, we'll have a great group of people here to go over just kind of the recent changes and just trends overall in the E&S space. Just to kind of get an understanding of what your day-to-day is like for both of you. David, can you start just giving an overview of just kind of your day-to-day in the E&S space and just generally your experience with AI and automation recently?
Yeah, you got it, Darren. I love the wholesale space because what I do every day is try to solve a problem for the clients, for the retail agents and brokers all over the country that we work with. We specialize in cyber risk, professional liability, D&O, allied healthcare, all things professional cyber and management liability. So we get to see very interesting risks, emerging areas of technology come through, and being able to find tough solutions for very difficult problems is something that our group loves working on every single day. But we have a very unique twist in what we do because it's not traditional wholesale. Well, at the end of the day, it is going out to the appropriate market, negotiating terms and conditions, and providing back a solution to our client that they can then go present to the end buyer. But we are very heavily supported and resourced with artificial intelligence, all sorts of tools that help us, not just from an efficiency standpoint, because I think this is where an area that AI has talked about a lot, about improving processes, making things simpler, faster. But we go many steps past that. We're taking knowledge of a broker that's been doing this for 20, 30 years, and we're democratizing it. We're making it available to everybody. That's the big difference. So it certainly does help with quality assurance, doing mundane tasks. But when you're able to properly identify carriers based on appetite and risk, when you're able to analyze an account and figure out what are the different areas that you need to be mindful of to secure coverage for, when it's going through and analyzing a quote, a policy form, an endorsement list, and looking for all of the highlights of coverage where there are shortcomings, those are the things that AI are doing for us on a daily basis. So it's a combination of traditional broking, which you would expect from a wholesale broker that specializes in emerging risk, emerging areas of the economy, whether it's cryptocurrency, if it's AI itself. But then we're also utilizing those tools ourselves to be more efficient, to be more effective with the placement, securing the right terms and conditions, and offering a completely different level of service back to our clients than what they typically get from the wholesale marketplace.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's exactly it. Like with AI and automation, it's not here to take away like our expertise or brokers' technical expertise. It's really here to partner and, as you said, democratize on knowledge and just kind of help bridge that gap. And Mike, just kind of curious what you're seeing on kind of the more so broker and carrier kind of aspect day to day. Any recent trends?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so at Dark Matter, we're a pure connectivity play. We built a platform called DM Connect, and we're moving data between systems and automating to the benefit of speed and efficiency and productivity, but also data normalization and aggregation, right? So which plays big into the AI space. We do focus on the wholesale intermediary and the MGA space, which I've been in for the last 25 years, as primarily a CIO. And so we're just taking that knowledge and expertise and our relationships and applying it to the space as a whole. And where we can automate digital interactions and workflows for an MGA, for example, with a specialty carrier and their retail agents, we're seeing them favor those relationships more, right? Because if they can place with a partnership that includes data exchange, lack of keystrokes, structured data aggregation, all as part of a digital process, they can write more and be more effective. And so we see our MGAs starting to, really lean into those relationships and be much more productive with them and start to scale up the productivity and the number of transactions that they can handle between them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly it. Is like, we have these tools and this technological advancements now, but it's like, what do we actually do with it, right? Like, how can we implement these tools like into existing workflows? Like, we're not here to reinvent the wheel or anything. Just kind of put just kind of speed things up and just make things more efficient there. So kind of curious of what you're kind of saying with the E&S interaction with like standard market, retail, broker players. It kind of sounds like maybe E&S is innovating and kind of like leading the charge kind of first on that. Um, what have you guys experienced for that?
Mike, maybe I can jump in first. I mean, I think being in the ENS space is that's where you typically see innovation. In the admitted market, the standard carrier marketplace, they are constrained by rates, by the forms that they file. There's just not a whole lot of flexibility. And that's where the ENS market really shines. It's an opportunity to be outside of the box, to come up with creative solutions, to write very difficult risks in a manner that makes sense. Of course, the insurance company has to do it in a profitable manner. So they have to be able to have that flexibility to add certain endorsements, exclusions, to be able to charge the right pricing that's makes sense to the risk that they're evaluating. You can't treat every account as a cookie cutter approach. It will never work. And that's more of an appropriate fit for the standard lines market. So in the E&S space, again, you see that level of innovation taking place, whether it is trying to find solutions for very complex risks where there's just not a whole lot of history compared to some other industry segments. Just think of cryptocurrency, for example, or even the emergence of artificial intelligence. It's being adopted and utilized across so many different segments of the economy, whether it's financial services, hospitality, government, public entity, whatever it may be. All these different sectors are finding ways to use it and to add greater efficiency. So how do you evaluate and how do you underwrite to those types of risks? So you have to, it's not just a gut feeling. You certainly want to use data, of course, but a lot of it is just figuring out what makes sense for where we are right now based on what we know now about this type of exposure. So again, on risk analysis, yeah, that's where innovation takes place. And I think that's where we're seeing also the adoption more so of different technology like AI, being able to add it in to streamline processes. From a claim standpoint, AI loves data. It eats up data. That's what it's made up of. So from a claim standpoint, being able to flag fraud related claims, being able to look at and analyze surveillance cameras, looking at different footage, being able to analyze it against social media accounts. We're seeing AI that's being utilized in different pockets for claims handling, certainly in algorithmic underwriting and setting up for the underwriter overall analysis of the risk so that the underwriter can dive into it deeper. We're utilizing it very much so on the broking side. So you do see more innovation in the E&S space, whether it is risk underwriting and handling accounts or the adoption of technology like AI.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very well stated. The premise being that the E&S industry by design is innovative, and that has always been applied to product and acting as that backstop to standard lines. And there was a time not too many years ago where that freedom of rate and form was a barrier to a lot of this, and I think now it's not. I think it's an enabler. We're beyond. We've normalized data, we've normalized transactions. We're not constrained by accord standards by line of business, right? We're applying that innovation now much more deeply across the space to AI, to technology, to automation, and I see some amazing things going on. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely been interesting to see. I mean, even David with like flow specialty entering the market. Just kind of curious on that tech forward approach of like the wholesale broker, because obviously there's companies that are third party companies, say like dark matter, that's then like coming in and helping innovate versus like companies that are building on the tech forward platform from the start. Just kind of curious of like the setup there of obviously like you're partnering with retail brokers and probably small to medium sized retail regional brokers that don't necessarily have the capacity of the alpha house brokers to make those very detailed and investments like into their own products or systems internally. So just kind of curious on, that process of really adding value to that group, and how they're not only leaning on like the technology itself, but also, as you said, the expertise for getting appointed.
Yeah, I think what's required of wholesale brokers today, the standard is much higher, or at least it should be, compared to what has been required of wholesale brokers in the past. Typically, it's expertise. Of course, you come to a wholesale broker because you want that knowledge, you want that understanding of certain areas of coverage. Retail agents and brokers, that you can't be an expert in everything. They're handling every aspect of their clients' insurance portfolio. So you lean on a wholesale broker for that expertise. And certainly, wholesale brokers historically have been guidance and a pipeline into the E&S marketplace, which, by the way, is over $100 billion in premium now. So it is a very different, very strong and thriving ecosystem of business compared to the earlier days when it was significantly smaller. Again, serving a time and a place for risks that didn't fit the standard market, but so much more is available. The capacity is very available for all sorts of different lines of business. But a wholesale broker, it's tough to give that level of expertise, the time and attention to a $5,000 account that you typically give to a $500,000 account or a $100,000 account. On those types of deals, you can dig into the policy form, you can shred it, you can give the analysis, the pros, the cons, you can do a comparison against one or two other carriers so that you're providing a very in-depth, nice analysis and overview when you go back to your retail client so that they can make a good decision with the client for the buying process. But it's very difficult to do that on more transactional deals. And there are only 500 Fortune 500 companies that are out there. So the segment of large enterprise business is very small when you consider the population of the everyday business, where it is still a very important purchasing decision for them. So that's where the tech really comes into play. And that's the value proposition, Darren, that we have for the clients that we work with. It's we're going to give you the time, the attention, and we're going to give you that white glove service on every single account. It doesn't matter the size, it doesn't matter the complexity, because we have gone in and we've trained our AI. It's very specific. You hear all of these stories like Chat GPT and different large language models that pass the bar exam or different AP college level, coursework and exams. We've done the same thing with our AI in terms of very specific insurance related data, RPLU related coursework. We've given it that type of information to train on, to understand. And then it was able to pass with flying colors different levels of questions and exams. So it's very fine tuned and it understands specialty insurance. It's not a generalist. Like any of us can go on to Chat GPT and just type in any number of things and it will provide a respectable answer back. The AI that we're using is very fine tuned. So that's the level of service that a retail client should expect from a wholesale broker. You're going to get the time, attention to detail on every single account. It's not going to be, well, you're coming to me because you need some market access and I'm just going to provide a quote back to you and good luck with understanding it and making the right decision with your client. No, we're going to go to the market. We're going to understand who are the best players to go to, negotiate terms and conditions. And then when we come back to you, we're going to make sure that you fully understand what's being provided. There's no see the attached, good luck. It's no, here are the pros, the cons. Here's where this one could be beneficial to the client. Here's where pricing comes into play. Here are some exclusions or some endorsements you need to be aware of. And ultimately, here's what we recommend based on our full analysis. That's where technology comes into play and it allows us to offer that level of service and client care on every deal, no matter what the size.
Yeah, you touched on something interesting there that the E&S space, if you haven't been in it, is notoriously easy to underestimate its diversification and complexity. And you talk about the difference between wholesale submit and low end brokerage, high end binding, binding authority, personal lines, MGUs, and program administrators. Each of these segments are actually can be very different in what's important to them and what they need, what their workflows are, what their responsibilities are, and where they are on the spectrum of term of what their responsibilities are related to the carriers and their distribution. All of them are in E&S, and all of them are in need of these tools and automation and streamlining of processes. And we find partnerships uh, easier with our customers, where we know exactly what we're focused on, what segment we're focused on, what value we bring to a particular segment within a diversified, E&S intermediary that places all of these types of business, and it leaves them plenty of opportunity to continue on their internal automations right alongside of ours, and we can bring things to them right off the shelf that they don't have to worry about. But it might be targeted to small commercial or direct bill, those types of things. So it's a very diverse space with a lot of different things going on, and they all have unique needs. And you need to know that when you're applying AI or automations, they're different.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what I'm very curious about of kind of seeing develop is just given the general like supply chain of insurance, like very different complexities and each different kind of link in the chain there. So just kind of thinking ahead to like these new entrances, whether it being new capacity on the carrier side or like new brokers kind of coming into market. Like, is that the bar now? Like versus like trying to compete with say like traditional very established carrier legacy carrier or say like an alpha house broker, is that kind of the bar of having like that, like do you have to build um their own tech stack like from the scratch, or like is that kind of the edge now or the expectation to be able to compete with like the quote unquote traditional market is to kind of start with that tech stack from the start.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with that one. I mean, it's having been in the space for most of my career and doing what we're doing at Dark Matter, there has never been a vendor like us, right? So to tackle what we're doing would have definitely been an internal effort, something that we needed to take on ourselves, right? And then look for vendor partnerships, to supplement and augment that and balance that. I'd be interested to hear, David's take on, as they look to build these AI automations and processes within Flow. Were you able to find, somebody out there that could just walk in and help you do this? Or was it simply you guys applying your knowledge of the E&S space and your workflows and your capabilities and enhancing it with AI? And that's kind of the approach we've taken. Our history in E&S, our relationships, our knowledge, and deliver an automation specifically to the space and specifically targeted lines of business.
Yeah, it's been quite an interesting process. I think Flow is just such a fascinating company because it's made up of both technology professionals as well as insurance professionals. The tech professionals did not have the understanding, the engineers and the individuals that have backgrounds in AI, they know how to build things, but they didn't know specifically how to tailor it for specialty insurance, what needs to be done for cyber risk, what needs to be done for a wholesale broker that's serving retail clients and working with different carrier partners. So that's why it was like really the marriage, the perfect bringing together of technology expertise with insurance expertise. And that's the way that we've built it. I think for any organization, you have to look at what's the problem you're trying to solve. And is there a company that's already developed something that you can take off the shelf so that you can be faster, you can be quicker when bringing your solution to the table? If there's companies that specialize in AMS, there are companies that specialize in having sales dashboards. You don't need to create that from scratch if somebody else has already perfected that, and you can just bring that in-house, make it turnkey, and then get done what you need to get done by utilizing it. With us, we have the expertise and the ability to create things that haven't really been done before. Our big value proposition is we're not putting the burden on the client. We're not going to have another portal for them to log into. We're doing away with that. You just email it to us, the account, the way you would any other broker. And we've built the tech on the back end so that we are doing the heavy lifting. We're doing all of the logging into the platform, using our technology to be able to access markets, analyze quotes. So that those were things that we built from the inside out because there wasn't something that was already there in place. So I think for any business that's out there, you just need to look at, was what we're doing going to add value in terms of the build time, or is it more effective and efficient to get somebody who's already done this, who's already mastered this space, and incorporate it into what you're trying to do? That's really been the approach that Flow has taken.
Yeah, and that's something I run into on a near daily basis now is the buy versus build dilemma. So I think you described it perfectly. But yeah, Mike, just kind of curious, reflecting on your time in like the CIO role at some wholesale brokers. I just wanted to get some insight into like the procurement and how you kind of evaluate like an ROI of maybe like that, not necessarily like an AI and automation tool because that might not have been in the marketplace. But just kind of for these companies, making an investment if they're like, well, whether it be like a flow building it, which takes a lot of time, resources, and internal capacity, versus buying it, then 50 to 100K, maybe more for some of these AI tools. Mike, like how do you kind of evaluate the ROI or kind of like the budget for these processes?
Yeah, I mean, for us now at at Dark Matter partnering, with our MGAs and having that experience of sitting, on that side of the table, we always come at it, starting with the numbers, and some things are very easy to quantify. We look at a book of business, we look at the total number of transactions. We know exactly what underwriters and TAs and CSRs are doing all day, every day to place these accounts. And take small commercial, for example, very high volume, low premium, but high touch, right? And really no data aggregation. So we can apply to that on a per transaction basis how much time we can save and multiply that out. It's really very simple. And then we can add to that, okay, well, how much faster can we do the process? How much more productive can they be? How many more quotes can they deliver and bind? And what's the value of getting the best and the fastest quote back? And then what's the value of all the structured data? We're bringing in policy level detail in a structured, scalable way to their what you can now call an actual system of record. Used to be just an agency management system that housed, invoicing transactions, right, and PDF files. And we're breaking that barrier back down. We're giving them actual structured data, and so those things are easy for us to talk about and to demonstrate. And we love the idea of using a proof of concept. And we're always open to new customer relationships, to installing and then letting use our solution for some period of time and let them make their own evaluation themselves. So we're that confident in what we're doing.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And just kind of thinking on like as more of the industry adopts more of these products on the AI and automation space, I'm just kind of curious on like predictions on how the insurance industry as a whole will, evolve over the next 5, 10 years, and just kind of how the relationship of kind of brokers and carriers, how brokers and carriers work together now will kind of change in the future.
This is Mike. Do you want to jump in, or do you want?
No, go ahead.
This is thank you. This is it's such a relationship business, and AI is never going to replace the relationship aspect of being able to go to your favorite underwriter and get a favor done because of the working history that you have with them, or the retail client that trusts you and they're sending that fire drill account over for you to handle because they know that you've taken care of them before in the past. So the relationships are so important in this business. That's something that this storied industry is known for. It's all about relationships. AI can come in, and it will absolutely come in, because there's no industry that's going to be left untouched by the use of AI. Every industry across the board will have an impact. So there's going to be a wave coming across, I think, the economy as a whole over the next 5 years. So things will absolutely look different. We're building AI to support people. So it's people first, with AI being there as a tool and a resource for us to ultimately get the job done, be able to be faster, to be smarter, to democratize information across the board. So that's the way that we're utilizing AI. But one thing that people really need to pay attention to is the introduction of what are called AI agents. So it's not just typing in and asking for information and AI serving up information to you, but an AI agent actually performs a task. It does something. So you can ask, what are the best restaurants that are in my area? And one aspect is, well, here it goes. It goes out onto the web. It will do an analysis of the restaurants that are in your area based maybe on what your food preferences are, look at the reviews and serve it back to you. But an AI agent will then serve it back to you after that. They'll go and actually book that reservation for you. So the AI agent will carry out a task. And we're going to see those types of things done, certainly in the insurance industry. We're developing AI agents now as we're speaking. We have a number that are in prototype, carrying out a variety of tasks. So not only will it take the submission in, it's going to fully evaluate it. It will send it out to the marketplace based on very targeted understanding of carrier appetite. It will get that quote back. It will analyze it, and then it will be able to provide a very detailed, very accurate proposal back to the client. Those are the things that we're going to start to see become more frequent within the insurance industry over the next 5 years. Again, it's a very long-standing industry, so things are slow. Companies are slow to change, but it's absolutely going to come. Mike, I'd be curious on your take on that.
No, I totally agree. I mean, what we see now, and we do this internally, I mean, we see this, this AI assistant basically slowly, and in some cases quickly, just increasing the efficacy and the productivity of individual, people trying to get their job done. And we see it significantly, in front office, back office, data manipulation roles, reporting and things like that, and seeing it getting more and more into the type of actuarial utilization I think David's talking about as well. And that increase in productivity, over time, will lead to maybe a slower growth of certain roles, but it's not replacing people. All of the policies we see going into place, especially the early ones as people are looking to play with this and adopt it and find use cases, is always human in the loop. It's always human in the middle, understanding these tools and honing them and understanding prompt engineering and what you put in and what you get out. And I think that's where we are right now. But in 5 or 10 years, this is going to be a base skill set, just like Excel and pivot tables was. If you don't have this thing sitting, or if you're not using it all day every day, it doesn't matter how good you are at anything else. Somebody's always going to be able to outwork you.
And that's what I kind of wonder as far as like with these AI agents, just kind of general trends with that making cutting down the learning curve, essentially, like just having so much more resources and just so much more like specialized resources. So no longer just for a new hire, say like the manager training one hire and taking that amount of time, it's almost going to be cut down. And also like the tools will just be there to be built into the learning curve in general. So I mean, I kind of wonder as far as like what will for like the next generation of talent, as far as like what roles will be open, and just kind of recruiting generally, like not necessarily a reduction in staff needed, but I kind of wonder if the workforce will look different per se, like not as many traditional market facing frontline underwriters or even brokers, being that as we've covered up, people will be more efficient and effective in their role. So will there just be less people needed in those roles and more people needed in other roles at these companies?
Yeah, I think it's easy, I think, for us to look at roles like programming or carrier reporting or data manipulation and analysis, or repetitive tasks or tasks being done by a significant number of, say, back office vendors and BPO type roles. I think it's easy to see the reduction in the efficiency in that with a tool like AI. David probably can see it a little more directly in the underwriting role, but I think that level of human expertise empowered by it is probably what's more near term achievable. But all these back office, front office type roles and very manual type processes, I think absolutely we should hope that there should be much less use of that, much less need for that, where things are being done by a person just at a wage arbitrage to an SLA that can be done, with something that's just as predictable but much more automated. And one other point I think you touched on a little bit, the barrier of entry to AI for any person is so low. It's so incredibly low. I say this all the time, and I say it to my kids. This is a gift. I mean, when programming, when object-oriented programming or say Python scripting, that's a little more technical. You're going to classes, you're learning something new, but not with AI. You can do it for free. You're prompting with the English language. For you to go on YouTube and learn this over a weekend is incredibly simple, and so there's no reason why everybody can't be using it and playing with it. And there's a tremendous amount of resources available for free, including accounts with all of these AI providers to get you going. It's the barrier of entry is almost non-existent.
Mike, I agree with you 100%. People should absolutely take advantage of all of the resources, whether it's creating songs or you're creating images in videos, cloning voices, whatever the creative aspect is that you have an interest in, take advantage of that. If it's research, Perplexity AI, certainly the different large language models like Claude, or if it's going to be Gemini, use them, get familiar and get comfortable with them so that you can not only understand the technology that's not just coming, but will be changing things, forevermore as we go forward, but to also increase your tool set that you have as well. So there's so much that's out there that people can take advantage of. And I agree, Mike, I agree with you fully. I think that the jobs that will be available going forward I think they'll be important. There'll be more meaningful work involved. So I think anybody that's coming up right now, focus on your soft skills, focus on your ability to communicate, to be able to articulate, focus on the ability to work in teams and to resolve conflicts. Those person to person and being able to speak and build relationships, that will be more important than ever before. And I think it's an area that is really lacking in this world that we live in, where people just kind of hide behind the keyboard or hide behind their phone and text messages. The ability to speak is going to be so important. And it will be something that I think a lot of employers will look for going forward as AI does a lot of the more repetitive and mundane tasks for people across all industries.
Yeah, imagine somebody like that, completely empowered with these new tool sets. I mean, that's a fantastic lifelong career in the insurance industry right there.
Yes.
Definitely a lot of great advice there. And just kind of as we wrap up here, just one key takeaway that you hope listeners will gain from listening to like this conversation on AI and automation.
Yeah, I'll sorry, David. I'll just repeat myself basically to say, right now the state of AI, right? Again, it's a gift. It takes nothing to learn it. English language, free access, tons of tutorials available, and don't be intimidated by it. If you can write a sentence, you can prompt engineer. It's that simple, and that journey, to over time will help everybody kind of imagine how that can help them not only in their personal life but in their job and to be more effective, and that will lead to all these great things we're talking about.
100%. Don't fear the change that's coming. Embrace it. Learn to take advantage of it. Use it to your own personal advantage, whether it be personally or in the workforce, and hone those soft skills. Work on your ability to communicate effectively, to work through conflict, to work in team-related environments. I think those types of skills will be so important going forward. Push yourself outside of your comfort zone, build that skill set, and utilize the tools that are available today.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, and thanks for sharing your expertise.
Thanks, Darren.
Thank you. Had a great time.